Så er vi på så da er vi på opptak. Så det er bra. Ok, then we switch to English, Bruno. Pleased to have you here. I highly appreciated that you can join us. Short presentation of Bruno. Very experienced race official, have been in sort of the top level Olympics and been I don't know how many years, Bruno, but I guess 30, 35, I don't know. Yeah. So very experienced and also an experienced sailor, particularly on boards, I guess, Bruno. Yeah. Yes. So Bruno will not cover any sort of specific topics, but we will try to sort of learn as much as possible from him and his experience from sort of all the way from club racing to the Olympic Games. And what I know is that Bruno, he is with being interested in boards and kiting, he is very familiar with sort of stuff that moves faster than we are used to. So I would like to start the talk, Bruno, with sort of the heading: higher speeds. What kind of new requirements do we meet?
Well, I would say the first thing always, and that's, I think it's always like that for a race officer, is safety. Because whatever we do there on the water or on the beach, safety is the first thing. So also here with higher speeds, we have new safety demands. You all see in the America's Cup people wearing this impact vests and helmets and all these things. And I think at America's Cup level, this is very well organized and very well dealt with. But also in other classes like the NACRA 16 or the NACRA 17 and now the windsurfers also and the kite surfers, we also see now helmets coming out very in a lot of classes. We have to look at the DIN norm because in the beginning it's hard to get people convinced to wear a helmet. Yeah, some young people say, "Oh no, that's not cool. I don't want to wear a helmet." So we have to convince it. We have to make it part of their culture. And then once it's part of the culture, we also have to be sure that they use helmets that are compliant, because not all helmets are meant to be on the water, and that's a big fight. And even that fight within world sailing has not been totally cleared yet, because there is some DIN norms and some E norms for the helmets. But if you compare NACRA 17 with kitesurfing, for instance, they use different systems. So I think it's a big job for world sailing here to find a way to have a new norm, especially designed for fast speeds sailing, like on foiling boats or foiling boards. So that's, I think, the first thing. And the second thing, in the helmets, we also have the color. If you see at America's Cup racing, you see people with all kind of colors, mainly the colors of their boat. Yeah, the Prada helmet and all the things. In the kite surfing, they have a rule that says it has to be at least 300 square centimeters, be brightly colored. But also that leaves a lot of discussion open. What is brightly colored? What is 300 square centimeter? It has to be visible when laying flat in the water on your back and on your front side. So also there, it's not really clear. It's still a vague area. I think all classes still have to work there and find some really norms that are equal for everybody. I understand that nobody wants to wear a fluo orange or a fluo yellow helmet, but in the end, that would be the best, I think.
What do you think about that, to make that requirement in the younger fleets as well? So in Optimist, you need to wear something bright.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something bright, but what is bright?
Yeah.
On the sea, is a white helmet, is that bright? If the sea is full of white caps, you see the problem. Yeah? Sometimes the water is blue, hell blue. Is a blue helmet okay? Sometimes the water is dark. Yeah, so it's still something that has to be more cleared out.
So good. So safety, obviously, with injuries and people pull out of the boats and so on. But any experience with the sort of the rescue vessels required? So a slow boat will probably not be sufficient anymore.
Well, no, if you look at America's Cup, they have special boats for man overboard situation, because in an America's Cup boat, for instance, he cannot turn back and get the man overboard. back on the boat. It's almost impossible with those flying crafts to get somebody on the boat again. So if America's Cup, for instance, they have dedicated boats that follow the boats just for a case somebody falls overboard. Yeah? So you have to be, indeed, these crafts have to be fast also. Other classes have, for every boat on the water, they need to be a tender ready to rescue. I remember also in the kitesurf and windsurf, we had an event in Brest in France, where in the kitesurfing, the wind dropped totally, from 6, 7, 8 knots to 0. Well, at that time, we had 120 kiters on the water. Well, all the kites went in the water, and you need to be sure to get everybody ashore. There was some current there, so everybody was, we put up the V flag, and all the coaches were mandatory to help rescue. But yeah, if you have to rescue 120 kiters, it takes some people and some management and coordination, of course.
Yeah. It's possibly something that people don't think of, that kiters needs to be rescued when the wind drops.
Well, it doesn't happen that often. Nowadays, they can take a plane in 3, 4 knots, the top guys, but the lesser guys, they will need 5, 6, 7 knots, and once the kite is in the water, if you don't get it out very fast and it stays long time in the water, it gets wet, it's even harder to get it out again. So you have to keep that in mind. The same with the wingsurf. The wingsurf guys, they are really good, but these boards, the competitive boards, are like 60, 70 liters. That means if you are 90 kilos, the board sinks. So
yes.
You don't have wind to keep the board floating, or floating at least, or foiling at best. Also there, we need some special requirements for rescue, and that's safety.
Do you have any jet skis? Are probably a good thing then to use. They're fast and easy to maneuver. But I know in Norway that jet skis and sailors, they are not best friends. So any experience with using jet skis as rescue vessels, as umpire vessels, and so on?
I have my own jet ski for many years, especially for kite surfing, rescuing kite surfers. Also, we use it also for like swimming events in the ocean and things like that. But rescuing kite surfers with a jet ski is easy. But you need to be a kite surfer yourself on the jet ski to know which way to approach the kiter in the water, because these lines are there. Once the lines get in your engine, it's over. So you need to be sure that yourself becomes a victim. And it's you need to train these jet ski people to do it. At the Youth Olympic Games in Buenos Aires, we had the TTR class, the twin tip racing class, in a slalom downwind format. All the judges were on jet skis, sorry, all of them. So, and there was the only way to keep up with these kids, because they were so fast, and with a normal boat, you would not be able to keep up with them. And also you would make too much wake, too much waves. So a jet ski is a good solution, but also on the jet ski, you need trained judges or trained personnel on the boats, on the jet skis.
Okay, good. Moving on. So these boards and boats moving that fast probably require some new format of racing. So the good old 90 minutes windward lure course is not very fun anymore. So can you talk a little bit about how the sport has developed with increasing speeds? Yeah.
Well, the first thing where I noticed it was in windsurf, in kite surfing. In kite surfing, with the new kites and with the new kite boards, the foiling kites and the foiling boards, they now go 1 nautical mile upwind in 4 minutes. So if you see that and you're going to say, oh, let's put out the course from 20 minutes, that means you have to do 3 or 4 laps, because 4 minutes upwind means 2 minutes downwind. That means in 6 minutes they make a lap. So the first thing where we say, okay, we don't want to have courses for 2 miles long or 3 miles long or 5 miles long, because that's not good for the public also. So the only thing we could do is shorten the races. But we also saw that once the race is started, when the people get there in position, it doesn't change a lot, the second lap or the third lap or the fourth lap, if you would go to 20 minutes racing. So in kite surfing, they are now at 12 minutes racing. If you compare with the old dinghies and the old boats, where they went to 90 minutes and things like that, that is in the fast crafts almost impossible. I think the target time for the Nacra 17 is around 20 minutes, the same for the 49ers nowadays. in windsurfing, they have targets times 15 minutes in the course racing, 1 hour in the long distance. In slalom, we have a target time from 3 to 5 minutes. So depending on which board, which format you are using, which class, there's shorter and shorter time limits for sure.
Any thoughts about that in the boats and boards moving slower? So why do the youngest guys in the fleet, the optimists, why do they have to sail 50 minutes? It's sort of any thoughts on that?
Well, I have not a lot of experience with optimists, to be honest. But I asked the same question on everybody who I meet and who is doing these races, if it's necessary to do that long races, because does really something change? And people tell me, oh yes, because I put all my capacities in the second upwind. And does that mean that he makes the first upwind bad or something? No, I think everybody does his full 100%, whatever he can, always. And also in those races, because I did a lot of races for sailboats also, I don't see a lot of changes after the first lap or after the second lap. Okay, sometimes you have some small position changes, but it's not like number 30 coming back to number 2 or something. Yeah, that doesn't happen. So I think also there we should go shorter races. But I understand there is a tradition there and there's a religion there almost for some people that a race has to be 90 minutes and blah, blah, blah. Okay. It's hard to change those minds.
Yeah, it's hard to change. But if we manage to put helmet on people, maybe we manage to change the length of the race as well. So
I think it's also for the public important. I don't know if you have ever watched 90-minute race, but to be say it's boring is I think the least you could say. I think in a 9 minutes race or a 12 minutes race or a 3 minutes race, you don't have time to be bored because there's always something happening. Somebody's overtaking somebody. Also the America's Cup races nowadays, they also are very short. They have the boundaries on top of that, so they have to tackle and jibe all the time. So I think these new things make it more interesting, both for the people watching, which are not a lot of them, but especially for television people, and for make it viewable to the mass audience.
Yeah. That brings me on to sort of obviously club racing and most racing on a national level is not the televised, but still we think it's a good thing that people turn up and watch. So any thoughts about racing closer to shore?
Well, that's has been one of my goals for the last 35 years. I think when I started windsurfing, it was mainly slalom windsurfing I did, and most of also the slalom races were done in the middle of the water somewhere far away from the beach. And I always say, if you put in a course, you first try to have either the start or the finish on the beach. Yeah, really on the beach, close to the beach, as close as possible. Like for instance, the last mark, 30 meters from the beach, and you have to jibe in between the mark and the beach to finish. That means everybody on the beach is involved and everybody on the beach can see who is winning and getting second and getting third. And if possible, you also put some more marks close to the beach. And so that's what's happening now in the Olympics since, I would say, Qingdao in 2008. We put in the medal race courses, and these medal race courses are courses close to the beach, easy to view from spectators. So I think it's very important, if you put in a course, try to find at least one mark close to the beach, if possible, all the marks close to the beach.
So just a comment from someone, Bruno. It's hard to hear you, and they ask you if you can speak a little slower.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Yes. So obviously boards are ideal to boards and kites are ideal to put very close to the shore. But have you had any experience with for instance the sailing, the J24s and that format? That's pretty close. They try to put that close to where people can watch from shore as well.
Yeah, and it's really fun. You have these races in harbor races, in city races on the river in the middle of the city. In Singapore, we had some races like that. It was fantastic, I think. Yeah? So if you can do that really close to the people who are watching, and we have a stand there, it's fantastic. Yeah. Also with big boats, you can do it. And I think match racing is a very good example. Match racing, two boats against each other. It's easy to put those marks close to the beach. And I remember in Weymouth, for instance, the match racing at the Olympics, it was fantastic to see because on the shore, you could see the downwind mark and the windward mark, yeah, and you could see everything and you could see every move. That was nice to see. But if it's happening somewhere, I would say that you need binoculars to see something, and then you're not even sure who it is because it's all white sails and white boats. And I think we're doing something wrong.
So, any questions, comments so far from the audience? I can see that there are people with sort of different experiences in the audience. So I guess we see this from different angles.
Mm-hmm.
Not any comments, questions?
No, I can just comment, since you asked, that we for the Norwegian Championship in the RS FIBA this summer in Risør, they really worked hard to make the course close to the city, which is really difficult. There's really one angle of wind you can allow that for that to happen, and it was fantastic because we got everything we wanted, and just the experience also from the sailors' point of view, to see everyone standing ashore and looking and having an audience. You know, we were not really used to that, so it's really inspiring, really. And to have a stand on land, we did not have, but that was a really good idea.
But I think that's a good comment there, Petter, that the sailors they like it. So I think the people that don't like it, they're not on the water sailing. They just have this theoretical thought that the wind might be bad or the course might be this or that. But generally, I think the sailors they like it. So that's interesting.
In 2008 in Qingdao, the Olympics, it was the first time we used this medal race system, yeah, where you have so many qualifying races, and the last day you have the medal race with the top 10 races. And in Qingdao, the medal race was just next to a big breakwater, yeah. And in the beginning, they put the wind was perpendicular to the breakwater, so the same direction as the breakwater, yeah. So it was pretty easy to put a windward mark and a leeward mark, and you could see from all over the breakwater, you see right in front of you the windward mark and the leeward mark. It was easy to see. And then I tell them, now we're going to move the marks closer to the beach, closer to the breakwater. And in the end, I moved the tornado course, yeah, and I moved it so far that the windward mark, and they have also a spreader mark, yeah, that the spreader mark of the tornadoes was 120 meters away from the breakwater. So that's really short. And I announced it the day before at the coaches meeting in the morning. So tomorrow, yeah, we're going to try this. We did it first on 2007 on the test event, of course. Yeah, that was 2007 test event. I said, we're going to try this. We're going to move the marks closer to the beach. And everybody, all the coaches there and everybody, oh no, don't do that. You take away all the tactics. We can only go one way on the course and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, anyhow, we're going to try to do it. And we did it. The next day on the coaches meeting, we never had such a good comments, because the tornado sailors never in their life had pictures where you can see a fly sitting on their nose, because they were so close to the beach that the photographers and the media made so incredibly good pictures and moving pictures also, that everybody was happy. And okay, we took away perhaps half of the tactics. The outcome, it's for everybody the same. Yeah, everybody has the same tactics in the end, and the outcome was really good. And also the competitors and the coaches says, yes, it is a good move. Let's do this. And then from 2008 onwards on the Olympics, we have always tried to move courses, perhaps take away a little bit of the tactics, but put them close to the shore.
I think that's really important, and I think we need to consider that for all the events we have for dinghies and boards and up to sort of the sailing league. A very good point.
But another thing that helps, of course, is having national flags or colored things in the sails that you can recognize people from far away. If you see all the white boats on the water with white sails, it's very hard. Since they introduced in the 49ers this incredible spinnaker with the national flag on, and also now in the windsurfing and in the kite surfing, you see the national flags everywhere. you recognize people even without the monocular. And also that makes it good. Eh? We have to get away from this white sails. There are still classes that don't use white sails. Eh?
That's something for the dinghy classes to consider as well, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So with sort of what we have talked about so far, I think it's time to go into the do's and don'ts.
Mm-hmm.
I guess after 30 years, you have both a lot of do's and a lot of don'ts.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I think for me, one of the first things, and I experienced this firsthand myself, is the conflict of interest thing. Yeah, I know on a club level, it's almost impossible to don't have conflict of interest. If I do it here in my surf club right in front of my beach, and I'm the race officer, and of course I know everybody by first name, I know everybody's father, I know everybody's daughters, I know everybody there. There has to be conflict of interest. And if we have a protest in the hearing, we don't have a jury here that is totally independent from everybody, because the jury is the parents and the mothers of the racers. So on the club level, it's very hard to get no conflict of interest. But I think once you move up to national level or an international level for sure, it's very important that you don't have a conflict of interest. And I had that experience this myself firsthand, because I was the race director in Belgium in the windsurfing scene for I think for 10 years at that time, or 15 years perhaps even. When my son came up, yeah, my son started windsurfing in the class I was managing, yeah, and he was always like 7th or 8th or 10th, no worries. So I didn't have a conflict of interest, I thought, yeah. But then he bought these 2 new fins, and with this new fin, he suddenly was first, and I abandoned the race because the wind was too light. The first race he would ever win in his life, my son, I abandoned it. Of course, he didn't speak to me for the whole week. Yeah. And from that moment, I decided, okay, I will never be race officer again when my son is racing. Before, I didn't see the conflict of interest because I thought, okay, he's only 7th or 10th or whatever in the fleet, no worries. But then suddenly he starts winning. And then I said, okay, I can't do that anymore. And that is not only on club level or national level. And you can imagine what happens on international level. It's even a lot worse.
Any good ideas on how to handle that conflict of interest if you can't avoid it? Just be open on a skippers meeting or before maybe.
You know, at the Olympic level, we all have to sign a paper, a waiver of conflict of interest, wherein we declare what we are doing beside being the race manager or the jury lead or member or the technical officer on the event. We declare, okay, sorry, I also am in Belgium. I'm a member of the race officials committee. I'm also teaching, I'm also training in my club some people and things like that. So we declare everything, and hopefully this declaration is enough. But you have to declare anything, because if you are like a board member of a club, or if you are a sponsor of a club, yeah, even a sponsor, yeah. My son-in-law is a sponsor of a top Belgian sailor. Yeah, that's a conflict of interest, eh? Because it's good for my son-in-law if she wins. Yeah, and so there is a lot of things to really consider, and you have to be very careful. And I think the best thing is to announce in advance where the conflict of interest could be, and if that is accepted, then it's accepted. Yeah, then everybody knows about this. And it's not, you cannot, at the moment when there is people thinking, oh, he's doing this or that, it's too late. Yeah, you have to prevent it. But it's not an easy one, the conflict of interest.
No, so I know for sure that we've had issues with that many times in both club racing and on the national level in Norway, because it is a small community. The number of race officials and judges are not enormous. So it's something we probably meet every single weekend when we go to these events.
Yeah, and very often also the race committee, in the end of the day, has to be part of the judges committee, because they don't have enough judges. What happens if you have a request for redress against the race committee? Yeah.
You're not given redress, you know. You just say no.
Yeah, it goes very far, I think, the conflict of interest, because I have another example. On the last Olympics in Tokyo, the judges and the race officers and the technical officers were all given a uniform. Yeah, this beautiful Olympic uniform with the same colors for everybody, in the same hat and the same back and whatever. But that means if there was a request for redress, yeah, the race committee has to go to the jury. The jury members behind the table all had the same uniform as the race officers. I think if I would be the sailor requesting the redress, I would say I don't have a chance, because I'm fighting against the race committee and the judges, but looking at their clothes, this is family. This is just one group. Yeah, so even there, it's in small little details. It's important that you make a distinct between the judges and the race officers, yeah? And on Olympic level for sure. So I think it was a scandal that we were all sitting there in the same uniform, especially knowing that we also had a nice dress, a suit and a tie. And why not say to the judges, if you are in a hearing room, put on that one. Then you have a distinction between the race officers and the judges. It was easy to solve.
Just when we are in the protest hearing room, so I know you have some thoughts about over earlies when just coming back to higher speeds. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the challenges we as race officials will meet when it's not over the line in 5 knots, but it's over the line in 30 knots?
Well, it's incredibly difficult. Yeah, and you need to be very experienced and do a lot of training before you really can see these small differences. If you know that, let's say on a slalom windsurfing course, yeah. So slalom windsurfing course, we have a reaching start. We have 8 to 10 competitors going a little bit broader than half. Yeah, so let's say 95, 100 degrees on the wind. That means they are full speed. If a windsurfer full speed is like 35 to 40 knots speed. Yeah, that is almost 80 kilometers an hour, 75 kilometers an hour. That means they're doing 20 meters per second. If you have a countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, every second these people do 20 meters. So it's almost impossible on your eye to see who is over early and who not. Because especially on the highest level, these people are trained and they are really they're aiming for this last tenth of a second to be on the good side of the line. So we have to use tools. What we use nowadays is the video on these slalom boats. Yeah, you have to be sure that you have the pin end on the video. Yeah, that you have on the right place where you take the video, and then you can, after the start, when you're sure there was people over, you do the general recall or whatever you have in your sailing instructions. Then you stop the racing. You look at your video. You play it back slowly. Make sure that you have the watch also on the video. Yeah, and then when you see the watch going to 0. Yeah, you stop the video and then you see, okay, we have these 3 that were over, these 6 or 7 were clear. Then you have to be sure to be able to identify them also, because it's not always easy to see who's people over, but also identify them then later on. Yeah? And you have to use tools. And now I recently learned that there is some people working with GPSs that can go better and better, yeah, with the tracking system. The tracking system was close up to 1.5 meters, which is not good enough for OCS. Now there's people telling me that there are systems that could go to 20 centimeters. If that is true, let's use that. Because I think we're the last sport in the world that is using our eyes to judge people over early. In all the other sports, they are using television and they are using systems to see if the tennis ball is in or out, or if the volleyball is in or out, or if the football was offside or not offside. We don't have these tools yet. And the tracking system we have today is not accurate enough. But I hope that on short time we will have something better. But that's in slalom windsurfing. Yeah, you can imagine in America's Cup they go even faster.
I think the IQ falls as well with the sort of 40, 50, 60 boards on the line, and they go 30 knots. That will be a challenge. Yeah?
That's in kite surfing, also in kite foiling. In kite foiling, the same. You have a start line, let's say of 200 meters, 250 meters long, because you have 70 competitors on the line. Yeah, they all wear only a lycra, with on the lycra a number, yeah, because you can't identify a kiter by the sail. You have to identify him by a lycra. If they all attack the line on the same moment, you need to be very good and very experienced to catch the guys who are over or not over. The rules are really clear. Either you catch them all, or you have to do general recall. It's
it will be a general recall all day then.
Well, I think the guys who are doing it now, Michael and Eva, who are doing the kite surfing, they have so much experience now over the last 5 years because they're doing all the events all the time. Yeah, and looking at the last stars I saw from the last Worlds in Italy 2 weeks ago, and I saw some videos of it, and I also saw the tracking of it. The top guys, it's Olympic now, the top guys are really on the spot every time, and you need a really good race officer and with really good binoculars to catch them. And sometimes we only catch them because we know, oh, this one has a sticker of GBR on his helmet and an orange board. And you have to wait until the next round to see which GBR guy is the guy with the orange board, and then you know who was over early. But you have to use all the means you have to identify people, and it's not easy, especially not in this fast.
I think just what you said there, I think it's interesting. So many people think that identifying a boat or a board means that you have to see the sail number, but to see if it's an orange board with a pink helmet, that's enough. Yeah? So I think that's important to know. Just identify. It doesn't say how you need to identify it.
Yeah. Of course, we hope not everybody's on an orange board and has the same helmet at that time. But so that's why I like it to have on kite surfing and windsurfing. Also, we have people with different colors of sails, different colors of impact vest, different colors of wetsuits and of helmets, and then that helps us to identify because sometimes it's the only thing you see. It goes so fast that you don't have time to see the numbers.
So the best sailors in the Optimist fleet always wear gray.
Yeah. They don't stick out, and
they don't stick out. White boat and gray clothes.
Yeah, and they put the sail numbers to the back of the sail.
Yeah. Of course.
As far as possible.
Yeah. Any questions now? Comments? Anyone with experience they want to share?
Perhaps also something here, Henrik, I would like to add also is we also have something like the racing rules of sailing. Yeah, and in these fast boats, looking at the America's Cup, okay, this is a special event status called within World Sailing, so they have the right to make their own racing rules of sailing. Well, sorry guys, they don't use Rule 18. Yeah, they don't use it at all. They have a totally their own race Rule 18 written out because the Rule 18, as it's written now in Racing Rules of Sailing, it works perhaps for slow boats. Yeah, where you have time and you have. We don't speak about master beam anymore, but anyhow, we have time to look who is overlapped and who is not overlapped at the tree, at the circle, and blah blah blah. Yeah, in America's Cup it doesn't work like that. In slalom windsurfing it doesn't work like that at all. Yeah, because if we would do that, we're always too late. It doesn't work. So we need to invent new rules. And if you look at the slalom windsurfing rules, they are now on the website. You can download them. Yeah, you will see that, for instance, Rule 11, which is a very important rule, windward leeward, doesn't exist anymore. They took it out. So in the old, I would say, defensive sailing, you're allowed to luff somebody and to defend your position if somebody's overtaking you. Yeah, in slalom windsurfing, you're not allowed to do it. The basic rule in slalom windsurfing today is priority to the fastest. So the one who is fastest, the one who's overtaking, of course, he cannot bump into your back, clear ahead. He cannot do it. But once he chooses his side, he wants to go downwind of you or upwind of you to pass you, you cannot change your course to defend it. You have to let him go. So we changed the rule because we think it's dangerous if you're sailing 35 knots, 70 kilometers an hour, and you will try to defend that. You will have serious accidents. So we took out these rules, especially to allow people to be fast and not to be endangered by people who are slower. That's the same rule. We make a new rule at the marks, very simplified, where we only see who is clear ahead, who is clear astern. At the moment the first one starts to jibe, that means he has the right of way. If you are not overlapped, you have the right of way the whole turn. If there is an overlap, the inside has the right of way. Very simple. And at any time a judge watching at the races, you can say, no overlap, no overlap, no overlap. That means there's no issues. Because if something happens, the ones from behind, he will be kicked out. It's easy.
Yeah? I think that's interesting. You say what you said, Bruno, that you changed the format and the rules to fit the sort of the speed so you don't just accept that the rules are the rules. It's possible to make changes so that boat safety will be better and sailors will be more happy, and sort of the format of the racing will be better.
Yeah, and it's not an easy system because World Sailing doesn't like it when you try to take out Rule 11, for instance. It took us 5 years to get approval to do it. But in the end, we convinced them. We said, hey, it's for safety that we do this. It's to keep the sailors on the water safe. We don't want this defensive tactics in these speeds. And the same in the 49ers and the same in the macros and these classes. They also need that type of rules, and they are working also on these changes now.
So to challenge the rules and existing formats, I think it's important for us. Otherwise, the sport will not develop at all. So.
No, but we have been developing. I'm 40 years in the sport, I would say. I was there when Master Beam still existed. Yes, so there was such a stupid rule, and then you have all these rules with the sailing proper course and these things. But sorry, I think somebody should have the nerve to look at the racing rules of sailing for the wide boats, I would say, the slower boats, and also change them dramatically. Yeah. Now, if you look now at Rule 18, to understand Rule 18, you need a university degree. And we ask children and optimists to apply them. Yeah?
How many minutes do you need, Jens Ludvig, to talk about this? I will give you 2. You are muted, Jens Ludvig. You're not muted, but your microphone doesn't work. I know there is a lot of energy in this sort of in the system to change, but I don't think people are brave enough to do it. So it's interesting, but
it's not an easy process for sure to change rules. I told you, if you are a special event status like America's Cup, it's in your contract that you can write your own rules, and that's what America's Cup did. The same with the Professional Windsurfing Association, PWA. It's in their contract to make their own rules, and they made it really simple. They said no rules.
Quite expensive though to have no rules.
Yes, but in the end, I would say after 15 years, it works, or it's kind of works. Sometimes you have excesses, yes, and they have one rule, and the rule is also safety. And if you do something on purpose, you cannot sail on purpose into somebody and blah blah blah. Yeah, then you get also disqualified. It's kind of Rule 2 or Rule 69. Yes, they still have that one, but for the rest, they don't have rules. They really say no rules. I'm not a fan of that, for sure. Not especially not with children. Yeah. But it also, for that level of competitors, professionals, it works.
But I think it's important that we try to simplify as much as possible. So I know there's been a discussion around sort of creating a children edition of the rules. So maybe cut the rule book in half. That will be okay. Yeah. Because they don't understand anyway. They don't understand what the rules are saying. So it's hard to apply them.
At the optimist race, you have 2 types of rules they use. They have the rules they use once they are all very far away from each other, and there's not like 30 optimists together at the windward mark. If there's 30 optimists together at the windward mark, it's jungle rules.
Yeah.
That's it. That's how it works there. Yeah? Nobody has the time to think about the rules and to see who is overlapped and not overlapped, and when the overlap was occurred, and if the overlap was established within blah blah and so on. Nobody has the time for that. So I think if people want to work on a new set of rules, I think have a look at the slalom windsurfing rules. Yeah, they're really simple, and they seem to work.
Good. Moving on to the communication part of being a race official. That's I think important to think through both before you start an event and sort of to keep in mind during the event. So any experience you can share with us there, Bruno?
Yeah, I think I made all the mistakes that are possible to make over the career I did of 40 years. And the more I'm getting more experience, the more I say, don't say anything. Don't say anything. That's the first thing they say. If you're on a boat, don't speak to the competitors. Yeah, even if they say good morning, Okay, you can say good morning, but don't say anything more than that. Yes, because everything you say verbally can be used against you. Yeah, if you say to somebody, hey, you were over early, instead of writing it down on a board and you write the sale number down, if you write it down, you take a picture of it, no jury will ever discuss that you did the right thing. But if you say to somebody, hey, you, and you point at him, you were over early, and that's the only thing you did, oh, sorry. Then you open a can of worms, it's impossible to solve. Yeah? So I think in your communication, you have to be sure, you have this, I would say there's 3 things you can do. You can use the official notice board, yeah, where you put the sailing instructions and the notes of race and the courses and the start schedule. This is official notice board. Everything that is written there is like a rule. That's the first thing. You have the official flagpole on the beach, which is also, if you put the flag there, it's like a rule. And you have the flagpole on your boat. That's also a way to communicate with your competitors. That's number 2. So first, the notice board. Second, the flagpole. And third, if really necessary, you can do it orally. But if you do it orally, it has to be described in your skipper's meeting. And it has to be allowed by the sailing instructions. The sailing instructions to describe orally briefings are possible. So I would say, never put that in your sailing instructions, because you open a can of worms. But if you really want to do it, the racing rules of sailing allows you to do it. But you have to describe in the sailing instructions how you're going to do it. Yeah? And then you can do orally things from your starting boat, for instance, or from the finished boat. But I would say, don't do it. Use the official notice board, use the official flagpole, and use the flags on the boat. And don't talk to the competitor. And I know on club level, it's almost impossible not to talk to them. Yeah, because you have these young children, they have no clue. Is it 2 rounds or 3 rounds? Yeah, because you put on your boat, on the back of your boat, it's an O2, outer 2, for instance. Some kids have no idea what this O2 means and will ask you. And I know on club level it's impossible, but once you go to international level, don't talk, don't talk. At the Olympics, the judges and the race officers and the technical officers have it written in their in the policy, yeah, that we can never talk to a competitor, except if it's 2 of us together, never longer than 5 minutes, and never in the language of the competitor, but always in English. That's a policy. It's written down like that. Yeah, that means if you're a jury or you're a race officer in the Olympics, it's a bad job. It's not a nice job. Because you're not even allowed to talk to the competitors. If you're a technical officer, if you're an equipment inspector, it's a different thing. Because if you're an equipment inspector, they come to you, they say, hey, my jib is broken, can I change it? Of course, you're allowed to talk to them then, because you have to sign some papers and check the old jib and register the new jib. You have to talk to them. So I say at the Olympics and at the highest level, the technical officers, the equipment inspectors have the nicest job because they can talk to the competitors. Yeah? But if you're a judge or a race officer, you should not be talking to anybody.
I think I will stay on the club level. I like to talk to people.
Well, that is one of the reasons I did 4 Olympics now. I did 2 of them as race officer and 2 of them as technical equipment inspector. And I prefer the equipment inspector job way above the race officer job. Although my heart is, I'm a race officer, you know, that's my first love. But at the Olympics, I prefer to be the technical officer, and because then you can talk to people.
But I think it's an important thing to bear in mind that the sailing is on different levels. Yeah. So if it's children or unexperienced sailors, you should probably try to adapt a little. So don't apply the Olympic standard on the club level racing. That will be both boring and unnecessary, I think.
But also at kids level, we do the World Championship slalom windsurfing for kids, for instance. Yeah. We have a skipper's meeting. For every day we have a skipper's meeting there. And the race officer says, and this is the plan, and this is the course, and we explain to children what we're going to do. Everything is, of course, backed with a notice board. But we explain. If the children ask a stupid question, yeah, something that is written in the sailing instructions, or something that is written in the notice of race, or something that is written on the official notice board, we say, sorry, we don't answer you. It's written there on that place. We explain them where, and we even say the number, and we show them on the board, here you have to read. But I will not explain on the skipper's meeting what is written there. Because if I say one word wrong, I could get in trouble. Yeah. So everything has to be really written down and put on paper, and then you can refer to the papers and to the numbers and say, and if they don't understand, you can say, okay, after the skipper's meeting, you can come to me and I will explain you. Yeah, face to face for kids. I would do that. Yes, if it's really a problem. Or I advise them to go to their coach. But some people don't have a coach, so if they don't have a coach, I will help them. And if I'm in a jury, I will also say the jury is here. If you have a question, go to the jury. They will explain it to you. Don't go to the jury before you have a hearing about that is an issue. But if you have a question about the rules, go to the jury now. You have the whole week. The jury is here. We are waiting for the wind every morning. Go to the jury, ask. They are here to help you. So that is something we do with the children.
Good. After we've started the race, Bruno, I know you are very fan of sitting down and have a cup of good coffee and relax. Or
it's fantastic. You have all the stress of the start going on, the flags going up and down, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, up.
Yeah.
Your start, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
And then the lady comes up with the coffee and okay, let's have a good time.
Yeah.
And that is too often I see these things happen, and this is no way to do it. You have to keep your nose in the wind all the time. You have to be, as race officer, you have to look at everything. You have to see everything. Before Mark 1 reports there is a wind shift to the right or there is a wind drop or whatever, I think you as race officer should have seen it already. Yeah, so you have to keep your nose in the wind all the time, and you have to keep on looking what is possible. There can be wind shifts, there can be wind changes. Also look farther away. Look if there's thunderstorms coming from a distance, if there is a tourist boat coming by, if there is a cruise boat going through your course. There's so many things that can happen, but you have to see them. And if you know them in advance, you have to be ready, and then you can also adapt to that. Yeah, if you know. But too often I see people, you have a clear start, let's have a coffee. And they go downstairs or in the back of the boat. No, after the clear start, the first thing I do is I go in the front of the boat and I watch the racing. I'm the first supporter of everybody, and I look at everybody. And I can clearly see people going left, people going right. And I suddenly see a wind shift on the right. I say, okay, now we have to be very careful, yeah? Because if this happens in the first half of the upwind, blah, 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 we could perhaps have to abandon, and so on. We have policies about that, yeah? So yeah, it's very important to keep your nose in the wind the moment the start has been given.
Comments, questions?
I can say that. Oh, yes, Ludwig first.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, we do.
Good. I would just support that comment from you, Henrik, that it's important to keep the level of sailing in mind. I've been sitting today writing, trying to write about the coaching judge, and I think that for club sailing, even national sailing, without a look at ranking or qualification for international sailing, we should maybe bear in mind that both race officers and judges can support the sailors in many ways, also by learning them how to. And I think that if we could introduce the word coaching judge, it would also mean that we would close the distance between judges and participants, and judges and coaches, judges and race officers, which would probably make the sailing or racing much less scary for the youngs.
Yeah, I agree totally. We even at the World Championships of our junior events, junior and youth events, if there is a morning with no wind, the judges or the jury, the head of the jury will say, okay, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, the racing starts at 11 or something, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, I will give a jury a rules seminar. Everybody can come, everybody can listen. And the head jury will then explain the rules as simple as possible to these kids again and again and again. Yeah.
I have the same experience. I've introduced the same thing in Norway. That when I'm heading judge committees, I protest committees. I wouldn't even call it protest committees. I will gather all the sailors and coaches and even parents in 3 rings. Sailors inside, coaches, and then parents outside. And we explain rules, and we let the kids ask or make questions, and they do a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to hear that you won't deny the possibility of less formal.
There is this nice thing that happened a few years ago in Belfast. You know, Belfast in Ireland. Yeah, I was there for an optimist regatta, a big optimist regatta. I think it was even the Europeans or the worlds. I don't remember. And the hearings were done in the town hall of Belfast, which is a building from the 15th century. Yeah, with his big stairs in the front, and it was in the room where the mayor normally sits with his. There was the hearings. Yeah, and he had all these judges sitting there behind this big oak bench, all with their jackets on and their blazers and their badges and their ties, yeah, all sitting there. And you had these 2 little optimist kids coming in, and the head of the jury goes up and he says, "Who is the protestor and who is the protestee?" And this little boy says, "I'm a Catholic." I didn't tell that story in Ireland last time because I don't know how it would work.
Yeah.
I tell you, as a judge, if you work with children, you have to work on their level. If you work with adults, you have to work on their level.
Yeah.
If you work with Olympians, you have to work on their level, and you have to adapt all the time.
But another thing, before I leave the comments to Petter, you said that, or was it you, Henrik, that said this may be very expensive, leaving out the rules. I was judging the Nordic IQ championship this year, and I found that that was my first IQ experience, and I was on the water all the time to watch them, and I found that I never saw so careful sailing, so much care putting into avoiding collisions, because they all know how dangerous it is to crash or to collide. So even careful leeward, windward situations were really avoided.
I was more thinking about the professional windsurfing tour, because if you see the jibe marks there, it's a bunch of people on top of each other and broken mast and boards and sails. So you need to be fully sponsored in order to sail by no rules in that level.
Yeah, sure.
So.
But I agree with the speaker that in IQ foil, but also in NACRA and also in 49ers, people tend to be more careful. Yeah, because they know if something happens, if you fall in the water, if you get out of the plane, the race is over, because the race is only 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes. So if once you lose something, it's over. So they are more careful.
Pata, you had a comment.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, just to backtrack to the last section about this. To see which sailor is above the line. So we were arranging for IQ Foil this summer as well. Also my first experience, and I was on the start pin end. We wanted to track from both sides,
of course.
and I mean the speed was incredible. Even though I knew I'm used to dinghies, so just like the last half minute before the start, I was thinking, what are they doing? Have none of them heard that the start is, they're supposed to be here in 30 seconds. And, in 10 seconds, still, where are they? And when the start came, they were all there and they were really fast. And it was just like a shock passing us. And I thought, in that moment, because there were so many equal, they were so close to the line, all of them. If I was allowed to have some spray paint and spray the tip of their board in different colors, I would be very happy. So you could distinct them on color, because all the boards and all the sails, they're all the same. So it was really, really difficult to call out the sailing numbers in those speeds. So that would be a nice rule to have different.
Yeah, it's a growing curve. We already discussed it. We said we have to take a shotgun and shoot over the line at the start time. And everybody who has a hole in his mast or in his sail, then he was over early.
Good one.
Any other comments? No?
I can have just one more comment, because I just didn't get to push it out, and it was like way in the beginning when we were talking about having the races close to the beach. We also had a very good experience in the limitations that it provided. We cut the ley lines on both sides because it was land on both sides, and the sailor commented, specifically about that made it a lot of fun. And they couldn't use the strategies they normally do, but they could make new ones, and it made for exciting sailing. And so when sailing the traditional course, as a race officer, you maybe want to adhere to the class rules, but those small variation, they just offer positive things also, in my experience from this summer.
Yeah, it's the same what happens in America's Cup. They have the boundaries on both sides. And it's to force them to have new tactics and to have more tacking and more jibing on the course area. I think in the kite surfing, they do on purpose the rounding of the leeward mark. Yeah, they force everybody on port to round it. Yeah, they don't put a gate, they put a rounding mark on port. It means on the upwind, they have at least 2 tacks, but also on the downwind, they have at least 2 jibes to force them and to make more tactical choices. Yeah, so it's by just adjusting your course a little bit, you can make these things, you can force them to make more choices, but putting it close to land is also a good thing.
Okay, to end this, or start to end it, I would like to talk about a little bit about fairness, Bruno. I know you have a lot of thoughts about what's a fair race, and it's probably more into it than most people think about. So can you talk a little bit about what you see as a fair race, all the way from the start to finish?
Well, I think if you read the race management, the policies, the policies are written for fleet racing. If you read those, all these things that are there are just there to make it a fair race, to take away choices that we could make as race officer, but to take those choices away from us and to limit us to make always the same choice. Yeah? If the wind shifts more than 15 degrees in the first upwind, in the first half of the first upwind, you have to abandon the race. Yeah? If at the starting line, the fleet is bunching on one side of the line, instead of you have a nice spread all over the line, you have to abandon the race before the start, and you have to set your line again and do it again. These are all things that are really well described in the race management policies. And if you read them line by line, I think, and you follow them line by line, that makes the race fair. And that's the most important thing, because as long as a race officer can make his choices, oh, let's start now, or shall we start in 15 minutes? No. It should be described when you have to start, because if you are allowed to change the starting time, even with 15 minutes, that would mean that perhaps people with less skill in light winds will have a disadvantage, and people with more skills in high winds will have a disadvantage, or whatever. So I think you have to take away as much as possible everything away from the race officer, and you have to describe it in advance. And I know what I say is not lightly, because we like to make decisions. Yeah. But we should only make decisions that are really the ones we have to make. An OCS is a decision we have to make. Now with the new rule about sailing the course, we have to say, we can now disqualify somebody who did not sail the course. We don't have to do the jury anymore. Yeah. So now there are some rules that allows us to say it like this, but normally the most of the rules should be black and white, and the race officer should not have time to play. If the sailing instructions say we will have a start at 11 o'clock, first possible start 11 o'clock, I think there must be something really serious going on for not to start at 11 o'clock. That's a basic thing. And I think in the whole way of looking at all the rules and all the courses, if the sailing instructions say the target time is 25 minutes, and you see you will have 35 minutes, well, do a change of course. Try to have this 25 minutes because our athletes have trained for 25 minutes and not for 35 minutes. Yeah? So we have to make everything as close as possible to what they expect us to do. And then they will find the same race all over the world in the same conditions, and there will be a fairness, a consistency, and also a quality level that we can give them. But we have to be consistent.
I think that's something to take into account when we do the national level as well. So we have the National Cup for Optimists and ILCAs and whatnot, and to be consistent across the different events will be probably make them more professional and better for the sailors. So
it's very stupid. I was a race officer on the World Championship Techno windsurfing in San Francisco. That people were there at the St. Francis Yacht Club. Yeah, it's the beautiful river in front of you, St. Francis Yacht Club. I had the north course and the south course. Well, the sailing instructions said we're going to have a first start, I don't know, let's say 11 o'clock. Yeah. And I hear on the course, on the north course, I hear the gun going up at 11 o'clock. And on the south course, the gun goes at 11:20 seconds. And I say, why are you 20 seconds late? And this American guy, it was John Craig, for people who know the name. Yeah, he was the race officer of the America's Cup before, so he's a really well-respected race officer. I said, John, why were you 20 seconds late? So only 20 seconds, he says. I said, no, it doesn't work like that, John. I want to hear the gun on both courses at the same time. Okay. And the next day it was like that. But it's a matter of principle, yeah? And if we work on GPS time, we work on GPS time. And there is no excuse to be 20 seconds late. So yeah, you have to be pushing a little bit there and sometimes to make it happen. But at the Olympics, I can assure you, if you have 5 course areas and it should be 5 starts at 11 o'clock, there will be 5 starts at 11 o'clock. Always. Except if there is a safety issue or something very dangerous or whatever. Yeah? But otherwise, it will happen. But that's fairness to the competitors also. Eh? If you say the competitors are going to start at 11, and then you say, oh no, let's wait because there's still some people leaving the beach and still some people coming out of the harbor. Sorry, you're helping the bad guys because the good guys are with you. Yeah? So you have, and this is the first thing. I do that on skippers meetings. If, for instance, slalom events, we have daily skippers meetings. I do a countdown for the skippers meeting. Yeah, skippers meeting at 10 o'clock. 10 minutes to skippers meeting on the radio. 5 minutes to skippers meeting. 1 minute to the skippers meeting. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10 o'clock. This is your skippers meeting. Yeah? Put your watches on it because at 11 o'clock we will start and it will be the same timing I use for the skippers meeting as on the water. If they use to a certain system on the beach and they see that you are really strict on timing, next time they will be in time.
Yeah. No, but I think it's important to be, as I say, consistency is important, and maybe 20 seconds late is probably good enough at some levels, but the point taken, Bruno. you need to be at time.
Yeah, and I think for us, I would say Northern Europeans, it's pretty easy, but I can guarantee you, if you go more to the south of Europe, it's getting more and more a problem, and if you go to the islands, it's even worse. If you go to Ibiza, if you go even to Hawaii, it's really a problem. You go to the Caribbean, it's a problem. If you say we're going to start at 11, well, by 11 they will start leaving the harbor, and then perhaps, except if you do the first day, like I said, on the skip meeting, you say that's the time we start, and they see you do it. I tell you, the next day they will be on time.
Okay, any questions before I sort of come into the last topic of the talk? No? I think it's important to see that as a race officer, we are able to influence the outcome of the race in many different ways, and I think people are not sort of aware of all the different things we do that influence the racing. So can you sort of, before we end, Bruno, say a little bit about all the stuff we do? I mean, we have talked about it, but sort of not influencing racing in a bad way.
Well, I think it's. I mentioned already. It's in everything you do. If you follow if a course is supposed to be, I would say, a windward-leeward course, yeah, and you put it 10 degrees off wind. Sorry, this is not consistency. You have to be sure. And okay, for 1 degree or 2 degrees, I would not change the course. But if a sailor expects to be the windward mark, I would say 120 degrees, then and the wind is coming 120 degrees, it should be there and not somewhere in the area of. And I think, yeah, you have to be very strict. And I know some waters it's impossible. If you have 200 meters deep water, 300 meters deep water, it's impossible. Although nowadays with the new marks they're using, if I see Lake Garda, they have all these marks that are computer managed. They just push a button and the mark goes to the right coordinates. It's possible, but even there you have to be really correct. Calling the OCSs, calling the black flags, all these things. It has to be, and I think also a part of this is to be proactive and to look forward and to always have in your mind, okay, what will be next? What if this happens? What can I do? Do I have a boat to change the course? Do I have this? Do I have that? Every boat has an M flag. Very stupid thing. But if not all the boats have an M flag and a mark sinks, you're fucked. Race thrown away. We don't like that because a race thrown away is not fair to the competitors. Yeah, because some competitors were doing really good in that race. Yeah? So you have to be prepared on everything. You have to be proactive. You have to look forward all the time, and you have to have your plan A, of course. Today we're going to have a start at 11 and one at 1 and one at 3, for instance. Yeah, but if something happens, if there is a big problem or a problem with the wind or whatever, you have to have a plan B and a plan C and a plan D ready in your mind. And if you say, okay, let's do one more race, are we sure we're going to end in time? Are we sure we're going to have the cutoff time correct and all these things? So it's always be very proactive as a race officer and look ahead in advance. Yeah? There is a lot of tools to help you to do that. Eh? If you have to calculate, if you have the course for 12 minutes and you know it's kite surfing and you know in winds between 12 to 25 knots, they do 1 nautical mile in 4 minutes. Well, it's easy to calculate how big the course should be. There's a lot of things to help you to do these things correct, but you have to be proactive and you have to either know the rules really good. Yeah, you don't have time to look in the rule book while organizing races, and then also you have to be sure what you're doing. And okay, it takes experience, but I think everybody can learn it. It's not like it's nuclear science. Yeah, I think it's easy. We train here some young people to do these things. We have young people doing their own optimist regattas. Yeah, the children organizing the race for themselves, and it's a good way to learn them the rules. And also they see the side of the race officer and judges. So in freestyle windsurfing, we have the system where we have 4 people on the water competing against each other, and the other competitors are judging. Okay, we have a head judge helping them, yeah, and then afterwards they go on the water and they compete themselves, judged by their peers. It's also a system, yeah, but you have to educate them, learn them from young on. That's also a way how you get consistency in the end. Mm-hmm.
Okay, then just one more thing, Bruno. I know that you are, I don't know if you are a fan, but if you as a race officer discover that you are doing something wrong or it's not fair, I know you like the AP before start. Can you just say a little bit about that?
Well, the moment when you realize you do something wrong, you have to make sure that you make a decision that will influence everybody. Yeah, and you have to be sure that you don't disadvantage one or another. So you have to take a decision as soon as possible when you realize you do something wrong. And if, for instance, if your start line is wrong in the water, yeah, your start line is not 90% on the, I would say 90% on the wind that you use, and you see that everybody is bunching on one end of the line or bunching on the other end of the line, you stop the race before it started. You do an AP. It's your mistake. You made the mistake not putting in the correct starting line. That means you cannot punish the competitors for your mistake. So you AP the race before it starts. You correct your line and you try again. And if it doesn't work the second time, for the same reason, you didn't correct enough, you do it a third time. Yeah, you have to do everything you can to avoid a general recall. General recall, I would always say in 90% of the chances of the general recalls, it's the mistake of the race officer and not of the competitors. So I remember in Holland, in the Spa Regatta, at one time the principal race officer says, I don't want any general recall. Never, never, never. Because he was convinced it's 100% of the mistake of the race officer. And I think it's 90%. But okay, let's say between 90 and 100%. If there is a general recall, I think the race officer fucked up. Okay, sometimes when there is a lot of current, blah, 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 you could say, and that's for me the 10%, yeah? But if you work on a lake and with no current situation, and there is a general recall, sorry, then I think the race officer did something wrong. So better put an AP flag up before you have to do a general recall, yeah, before the start, of course, yeah, or abandon immediately after the start if you do something wrong, and then try again. Because the start is so important, everybody deserves a fair start. And if you put in the wrong line and the start line is not fair, you disadvantage people.
I think that's important to remember. Any final questions, comments to Bruno before we switch to Norwegian and do sort of some formal stuff? You don't have to listen to Bruno. So any questions, comments to Bruno before he leaves?
Yeah, just a last follow-up from me. I mean, I find that race officers have their personalities into the race at some level, and I guess that's okay as well. I mean, if the rule says that if you measure 4 knots of wind for 30 seconds, which is a lower limit, would it be your call then to do the start when that situation occurs, or would you allow for waiting a little bit longer for the wind to set at a little higher level? Or do you think the rule points that you should start when it's...
You normally follow the class policies, yeah? If the class policy say you need 4 knots of wind 30 seconds, which I think is a bit strange, yeah? And you have 30 seconds, 4 knots, you start. But I would say normally they will say you need 5 minutes of 4 knots, something like that. Because 30 seconds, you could have a squall coming over or a squall going down. Even if you know, okay, if you know that the wind is from the wrong direction and the wind will die in 10 minutes and come back 15 minutes later from the other side, then I would not start. Yes? But if I know this is a stable wind direction and the wind direction will normally, looking at all the weather charts, will stay in that direction, there's no real reason for me to know that something strange will happen, and the rule says 4 knots, I will start in 4 knots. Because some people have trained on those 4 knots, and I cannot punish these guys by waiting.
Yeah.
Okay, any final comments, questions? Oh, doesn't look like it. Okay, Bruno, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. I guess we have learned a lot, and it's always good to listen to people with more experience than ourselves, so we can all develop.
All right. Thank you very much for taking also time to listen to me, and hope to see you somewhere on the waters very soon.
Yeah, probably we will see each other. Okay, Bruno, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good evening.
Bye.
Ok, da kan vi bytte til norsk. Noen kommentarer, spørsmål, noen som refleksjoner, hva noe man vil kalle det.
Prater du norsk nå?
Gjør jeg det? Bergens kanskje, ja.
Veldig spennende prosjekt jeg hadde med å la de unge lage regattaer for hverandre. Og det jo liksom noe av det samme vi har hatt i tankene her med prosjektet Unge Ledere, hvor vi ønsker at ungdommer skal få og ta fullt ansvar for dømming og arrangement.
Jeg har en kommentar. For noen uker siden var jeg på et kurs med Bruno, og han fryktelig dyktig fyr som veldig glad i å henvise til policies og regler og sånn. Men det litt, hvis du snakker med han etterpå, så han mye mer sånn, det går an å tilpasse fyr. Og det jeg tror han egentlig mener, så vi skal ta litt til oss, det at hvis du kan regle godt, så det enklere å gjøre gode tilpasninger enn om du ikke kan regle og i tillegg gjøre tilpasninger. Så det jeg tror han prøver å få frem når han holder kurs og snakker med folk, det at liksom, gjør det ordentlig og vit hva du gjør, også når du gjør tilpassinger og forenklinger. For da blir det veldig mye enklere å forholde seg til på seilerne. Så han virker litt sånn firkantet, og it's all about the rules and policies, men selv på det nivået der, så evner de altså å tilpasse, men de gjør det ordentlig allikevel. Og det tror jeg litt viktig at vi tenker på at enklere betyr ikke halvveis. Det betyr bare enklere og like bra, for å si det sånn.
Vi så jo det tydelig med en gang jeg stilte spørsmål om den coachende dommeren. Så var han jo langt mer fleksibel enn det han hadde vært i utgangspunktet.
Ja.
Både når det gjaldt dommere og når det gjaldt arrangører. Snakk med seilerne. Klart du skal det.
Andre kommentarer og jeg ser at Geir Mjøen kommet på. Du jo i IQ-miljøet, Geir. Ser du noen utfordringer der med oss båtfolk som skal prøve å arrangere for brettfolk? Det litt sånn to raser som møtes på en arena vi ikke helt kjenner til, eller hvordan ser du på det?
Hører du meg, eller?
Ja.
Jo. Jeg sitter i bilen. Jeg har, hva heter det? Jeg ser en del potensiale og muligheter for at det kan bli enda bedre.
Ja.
Det noen ting som annerledes, men det når det gjelder krav til vind, så egentlig IQ-foil jo veldig likt Wasp, da. Som foilende klasse. Så når det hvis det sånn store regatta og noen klasser skal dele bane, så tror jeg IQ-foil gjør det veldig godt med å dele med Wasp. Det tror jeg skikkelig bra. Og så tror jeg at så det sånn at vi har jo varierende ferdighetsnivå på seilerne, men de fleste trenger 4-5 meter per sekund for å kunne klare å foile og liksom stabil vind da. Og hvis det litt sånn variable forhold, så kan det være at i stedet for å ha den konvensjonelle upwind-downwind-banen, så kan det være at de som seiler foil egentlig burde da få laget en sånn slallombane. Så der det noen sånne ting som annerledes enn med båter med kjøl. Men bortsett fra det der, så det også veldig mye som veldig likt. Og jeg ser på våre seilere, så har de en del utvikling. De har mye å lære av de som seiler for eksempel laser og sånn. Sønnen min, han var med å seile ungdomsligaen J70 borte I Ålesund. Og han kom tilbake fra det, og da hadde han lært vanvittig mye. Så jeg tror det Aikufoil også veldig mye seiling og taktikk og strategi, og sånn at vi har mye å lære av de som driver med konvensjonell seiling, om du vil da.
Spennende. Jeg har lyst til å pirke borti en til, så jeg ser for vi som arrangører, vi jo bare for å gjøre det bra for seilerne. Og Christian Irgens, han en ivrig sjel som seiler storbåt, og har vært med ombord I litt startbåter og sånn, men primært han jo en seiler da. Så Christian, har du litt sånn, kan du si noe om det å være seiler og det å forstå? Du har jo bare et par års erfaring som seiler, så hvordan det å komme inn I dette miljøet, og hvordan opplever du liksom det vi prøver å snakke om her?
Ja, hei alle sammen. Ja, nei, takk for at jeg fikk ordet. Det jo sånn at jeg kjøpte storbåt I fjor, I juni I fjor, og deltatt I mange regatter, vært I Shetland og single-handed og double-handed og mange regatter, og har fått god hjelp av folk til å lære å håndtere dette her. Men det som jeg synes, når du kommer som helt fersk inn I miljøet, så det ofte sånn at de eldre de tar for gitt at man kan ting, og man blir gjerne litt sånn aktorseilt og skippernøte, det tar man ikke, for alle kan jo, alle vet jo, og så videre. Og så bare det å forstå alle flaggene, sant? Man kan jo lese seg opp på mye, men I kampens hete når man skal starte, og disse signalbrukene gjerne ikke helt konsistent, og kanskje de gjør noe feil, kanskje jeg tolker det feil, men det var spesielt på en regatta, det var medlems klubbmesterskapet, da brukte man VHF veldig aktivt, og ga veldig tydelige instrukser til alle seilerne, fordi at man ønsket å inkludere flest mulig, og håpte at flere kunne delta. Og det var egentlig veldig ok, å være overtydelig. Og det med rekruttering nøkkelen her, også for de store båtene, at det ligger 250 båter I foreningen, og det under 10% som deltar på regatter. Man må ikke delta I regatter, men hvis man visste det at man ble tatt vare på den ganske inkluderende måten, så kanskje det flere som hadde kommet seg ut på. Men altså 1 år jo ingen tid I seiling, men de nye opplever antageligvis det samme da, litt sånn på utsiden, og det klart jeg har lagt langt bak startlinjen og observert, og så har jeg kommet meg over etter hvert, men det spiller ingen rolle når man I en læresituasjon da. Men ja.
Du begynner å bli farlig, så vi må få gjort det med den båten din etter hvert, så du ikke tar oss igjen.
Ja da, nå neste år så spinner jeg nå.
Men jeg synes det veldig interessant det du sier, Christian, for jeg tror ofte, som du sier, vi tar ting for gitt som arrangører, at alle vet, og det litt sånn på alle nivåer, det på optimist, og det opp til storbåtseiling. Og jeg tror vi skal ta det på alvor, at det vi holder på med, og holder på med 17. mai-flagging ute I startbåten der, det rett og slett ikke trivielt for alle. Så der må det å være overtydelig og prøve å forenkle og gjøre ting sånn at de som faktisk kundene våre her, nemlig seilerne, blir fornøyd og smiler når de kommer inn. Det må jo være det viktigste.
Ja.
Andre kommentarer og sånn før vi går over på bare et par slider jeg tenkte å vise.
Ja, en kommentar til. Det gjelder jo kanskje det å være forutsigbar I forhold til bestemmelser og så videre, men hvis man får en utsettelse på starten, og så går over lang tid, så hadde vi en opplevelse av at det var på en regatta, så var det veldig mange båter som ikke fikk ikke fullført, eller det var liksom 5 av 15 båter som kom I mål. Det ble en liten diskusjon rundt seilingsbestemmelsene da, om ikke de kan legge inn en passus om at når starten blir utsatt en time eller halvannen, så bør kanskje den take-out-timen justeres også. Og det jo kanskje en generell greie som man bør tenke på, å gi alle mulighet. Men dette jo kommer an på vær og vind og tidspunkt og så videre, og hvilken sesong du I, men den fleksibiliteten der noe å tenke på. Og det har jeg hatt en diskusjon på, Henrik.
Nei, vi skal ha en egen sesjon på det å skrive gode seilingsbestemmelser, og denne har jeg notert meg, Kristian, denne episoden der, for det en god illustrasjon på at det å skrive noe lurt gjør det mye kjekkere for alle. Det bare 2 ekstra ord I en tekst som gjør det hyggeligere å være med, og da må vi prøve å bruke alt vi kan for å gjøre det så hyggelig som mulig.
Jeg har en liten kommentar også til det, bare for å støtte Kristian litt til det med at det kan være litt inkonsistent bruk av signalflagg. Vi har jo hatt 3 Norgescuper I år, og altså der har det vært forskjellig bruk av tallstander på alle de 3. Så noen har tallstander 1 for 1 ekstra runde, og tallstander 2 for 2 ekstra runder. Noen har normalt 2 runder og ingen flaggstander, men tallstander 1 hvis det bare 1 runde, og 2 hvis det 3. Og så var det den foreningen der hvor seilerne var så små at de skjønte ikke dette med tallstander, så de hadde nummer 0, altså 1, 2 eller 3 runder, som andre ikke skjønte. Så da man gjør det jo ikke noe lettere for juniorseilingen når foreningene bruker forskjellige flaggstander, så det vel noe, nå tror jeg en klasseklubb, da, så det kan jeg passe på, og dere andre som kanskje sitter I klasseklubber, at man ser litt nøye på seilingsbestemmelsene som kommer til godkjenning, at man passer på at man gjør det der konsistent, for det jo et problem for de små.
Veldig, veldig godt poeng. Da skal jeg se om jeg kan få smurfen min opp igjen her, skal jeg se, sånn. Så nå ser det ut som det mye kjente folk her, så det vel, det jo snakk om litt sertifisering her også, men nå ser jeg jo mange som det jeg vil kalle for fullsertifiserte, så de skal få slippe å gjøre det en gang til. Men jeg tenkte nå bare hvis der noen som jeg helt kjenner igjen her, og litt sånn bare praktisk rundt de neste kvelder, og det at vi kommer til å publisere Teams, nå ser jeg her at det står Teams-link, det vil da bli en Zoom-link. Men det har vært veldig kjekt hvis folk jeg skal sende denne, jeg tror jeg klarer kanskje å dele den. Jeg skal se om hvis alle snill, nei, jeg skal finne en måte å gjøre det der på. For hvis alle registrerer seg på den første linken her, så får jeg noen e-postadresser og sånn, så jeg kan sende informasjon til. Hvis det noe materiale som skal ut på forhånd og sånn, så det greit. Det bare en e-postadresse og litt til, og ferdig med det. Så ingen sånn offisiell på meg, det bare for at jeg skal få inn noe data på hvem som med. Og så det sånn at de som skal være med på teorien ender opp med en sertifisering, de må melde seg på I min idrett, og der ligger det noen linker også, som de må trykke seg inn på og melde seg på vanlig måte. Og grunnen til det at der blir det fryktelig mye enklere å trykke godkjent I andre enden. Da. Så når folk har tatt eksamen og bestått praksis og sånn, så det veldig greit å trykke godkjent på det. Så det der skal vi... Jeg skal finne en måte å publisere dette på, sånn at jeg tenker jeg legger det på NSF sin side, det må vi kunne klare sånn. Så legger vi dette dokumentet der. Yes. Og så programmet, det blir som følger, det cirka 3. hver onsdag, og vi prøver jo selvfølgelig å gjøre det så relevant som mulig, og bruke caser fra I år, hvis vi kan, til å illustrere dagens tema. Da. Og så det sånn at noen av disse temaene ganske breie, for å si det sånn, så jeg har laget en foil på hver av de, så jeg skal legge det ut og sånn at jeg kan lese da. Men neste gang så blir det med litt sånn planleggingsbrill på da. Og grunnen til at jeg skrev et internasjonalt mesterskap, det var for at Nina Myhre fra KNS, hun var regattasjef for Foil nordisk på Vassar før sommeren. Så der litt erfaring både fra det med internasjonale mesterskap. Det kan hende det spesielle ting å passe på for det der språk og det ene med andre. Men det også et ganske stort arrangement å planlegge da. Så planlegging og samarbeid på tvers av foreninger og det at vi til sammen kanskje har de ressursene som trengs for at flere kan gjøre dette her. Så det skal vi få Nina til å snakke om 3 uker. Og så det en sånn teoridel på langtidsplanlegging som går på liksom, hva det vi i hvert fall må huske på da. Og så skal vi snakke litt om holdningsskapende arbeid, og nå vet jeg helt om jeg får Thomas med. Jeg skal si litt om hvorfor jeg tenkte at Thomas skulle få til å si noe om det. Og det for jeg tror denne seilsportligaen for ungdom har vært en veldig ålreit case i år. Vi hadde et supert stevne i Ålesund, og kjempestemning i Åsgårdstrand nå i høst. Der jeg var ikke med selv, men jeg har sett noen sitater og hørt noen historier som forteller meg at der var det god stemning, gode holdninger, og folk var rett og slett positive og greie. Og det tror vi skal lære noe av, og spesielt dette punktet med hvordan vi kan tilrettelegge for den positive utviklingen vi så der, og også i andre stevner. Men også det samarbeidet mellom seilere og arrangører og foreldre og dommere og trenere. Og for dette her til å bli en positiv greie som alle forholder seg til på en hyggelig måte, i stedet for at det skal bli sånn kniving mellom hvem det nå måtte være da. Så der skal vi prøve å kjøre en egen sesjon på det, og det at litt sånn, det sailors game, og ikke nødvendigvis lover og regler i høyeste rett. Så den historien Bruno fortalte fra Belfast var jo fantastisk, det kanskje det verste sort, men det veldig ofte sånn. Og ja. Og så det en teoridel på det, som går på litt sånn forberedelser litt nærmere stevne da, for å kanskje klare å tilrettelegge også for dette litt sånn positive, holdningsskapende, stemnings, ja, som ikke nødvendigvis har med liksom selve konkurransen og banelegging og start og sånn å gjøre. Og så, Jens Ludvig, tenkte jeg at vi skulle få høre litt om disse unge lederne. For det en ressurs som vi nødt til å begynne å benytte oss av, for vi blir bare snittalderen på arrangører i Norge går opp med 1 år per år, og det må vi få gjort noe med. Og den gjengen her tror jeg har noe å bidra med, hvis de får slippe til. Og det vårt ansvar å la de få slippe til, og de skal også nå få slippe til på dette seminaret for å fortelle om altså, arrangementer fra deres synspunkter, og jeg så sikker på at det det samme som arrangementer fra vårt synspunkter. Og så vet jeg at de ganske flinke seilere og begynner å bli ganske flinke arrangører, så de skal få lov til å fortelle oss med litt mer sånn fokus på teoridelen, så de også skal få lov til å linke litt opp til, det egentlig det som foregår på vannet, da. Så fra 5 minutter inntil folk har gått i på. Og med de 3 sesjonene der, så vi på kommet til nyttår. Så da det litt etter nyttår, der det litt mindre som planlagt, men det blir en sesjon på litt ny teknologi. Og det siste punktet her mener jeg alvor med, og litt gammel teknologi, for det ikke alt som behøver å være så jævla fancy. Av og til penn og papir og et kompass det du trenger, så det blir en litt sånn mix her. Flere seilere skal vi snakke om i år også, for det det viktigste vi holder på med, hvordan få flere folk med, og at de med lenger. Og så avslutter vi litt med hva gjør vi i sesongen 2023 da, når vi kommer ut i mars. For da det klart for å liksom gå i gang, da det bare en måned til sesongen begynner, og da kan det jo hende at vi har fått noen ideer og tanker om noe nytt, gøy, spennende, bedre vi skal prøve. Og da teoridel, det rundt sikkerhet da. Det får vi aldri snakket nok om. Så det det. Og så jeg har en liten oppfordring. Jeg ser vi litt færre folk enn vi var i fjor. Jeg vet ikke om det fordi folk, jeg vet at det en del som har vært forhindret og sånn, men hvis alle sprer det glade budskap, så kanskje vi blir litt flere. Jeg tror jo flere vi jo bedre blir disse arrangementene våre, for vi lærer av hverandre. Ja, Geir?
Jo, jeg har prøvd å avertere litt og gjøre litt reklame for dette, men har du noe dokument eller et eller annet hvor det står disse punktene som du viste nå? For det litt lettere å få med folk.
Jeg legger denne ute, sånn at den skal bli tilgjengelig for alle. Det skal jeg få gjort.
Kjempebra.
Prøver å legge den på NSF sin side, og så linker til den på ymse Facebooker og i de kanalene vi klarer det.
Ja, kjempebra.
Ja. Så jeg har bare lyst til å si en ting. Jeg synes sesongen i år har vært utrolig artig å se at det har vært en endring på mange ting. Ordentlig mange gøye arrangement som har vært utrolig bra. Det var vel en i NSFs styre som sa det, at han mente å se en positiv trend. Og det synes jeg absolutt vi skal være fornøyd med. Da. Så får vi den til å fortsette i 2023, så tror jeg dette kan bli veldig bra.
Jeg tror absolutt vi skal få den til å fortsette, Henrik. Ikke minst med din og Pers hjelp. Og jeg vil gjerne gå tilbake til det han snakket om, Bruno, og da lot seg drive videre inn i dialogen mellom arrangører, dommere, trenere og seilere. Og det helt opplagt at de unge trenerne, de unge som også dommere, gjør at det blir en helt annen stemning på vannet. Og jeg tror også det å kjøre diskusjonen om direktedømming på alle typer stevner fører til en helt annen stemning når du ikke har diskvalifikasjonsspøkelse og høringsromspøkelse hengende over hodet, men får det helt løst på vannet, så blir det blir noe annet.
Ja, absolutt. Ok, andre kommentarer, spørsmål, innspill? Så tar jeg gjerne kommentarer og innspill på e-post hvis det noen som har noen temaer som de ønsker å ta opp, eller de vet noen som har en god historie å dele som vi kan ta med, eller whatever. Dette litt sånn åpent for at vi alle skal bli litt bedre og ta med oss noe videre inn i sesongen 2023.
Jeg tror vi skal invitere dommerne inn på det ene seminaret.
Ja, det helt korrekt, og vi har en veldig god representant med oss. Jeg vet ikke om han logget av, det ser sånn ut. Men absolutt, de skal få være med, og Niklas en fyr som skal få være med der på det om holdninger og samspill. Så, absolutt. Yes, men da skal jeg holde dere med. Jeg håper at vi ses om 3 uker også, og at vi får med oss enda litt flere folk.
Bra, vi gleder oss.
Det godt.
Jobb med saken. Takk.
Ha en god kveld. Ha det god. Hei.
Ja, ha det.